How is everybody doing today? I took a really long time to prepare this video. It took me a lot, but I hope everybody's good today. I hope everybody's seeing this video. Okay, so that just kind of background noise there. So shout out to one and all. I'm going to read something that's really important. I'm going to start off with Proverbs chapter 11, verse 22. It says, "As a jewel of gold is in a swine's snout, so is a fair woman without discretion." And Matthew chapter 7, verse 6, it says, "Do not give that which is holy unto the dogs, neither cast your pearls before swine, lest they trample them under their feet and then turn again and rend you." We're going to talk about how dangerous a fool can be. Now, a fool in scripture is a surprising. In our world, in our society today, we think people are foolish when they don't get the results they're looking for. An honest person, a person who's a gentleman or a gentle lady, today is considered a fool. It's considered someone who can be stepped upon and taken advantage of. In fact, some people consider someone foolish when they make an unorthodox decision about something and it doesn't work out. And they think people are foolish for that. Now, that is not what a fool is. A fool, according to the Bible, is someone who lies and deceives other people and cheats and steals and gets involved in all kinds of wrongdoing. That is a foolish person. I've done some foolish things in my life. Up to today, I've done something foolish. But at the end of the day, that's still not the hallmark of a fool. A fool does not know that what he is doing, a fool said in his heart, "There is no God." You know what? Let me translate that for you. A fool said in his heart, "There is no good." You know, there are all kinds of fools in this world today. A lot of them, the world perceives them as very smart people, because they seem to be very successful at what they're doing. So I'm going to do some exposing now. Some people who consider themselves very religious and they talk about God, they truly don't believe that there is one because they act in a manner where they don't believe there's anything like good. The only good they know is what's good for them, what benefits them. They have no morale, they have no ethics. Their ethics and morale goes to the point of their self-satisfaction and that they are benefiting, and that's it. It doesn't go beyond themselves. Those people are fools. No matter how successful they are, no matter what it seems like in this life, they are foolish, because all of your success you will never take with you once you die. Once you die and it's all over, you leave everything behind. And a fool doesn't realize that. People who lie, cheat, and steal to get better positions and posts, they're as deadly and dangerous as murderers and robbers. They try to paint a good picture of themselves, but really they just simply want to benefit themselves and no one else they care about. And so they will do whatever it takes to get what they want. They'll even sell their souls. Those people are fools. People who have power and great power, but they do not use it responsibly. Instead, they use their power to oppress other people, to try and keep the status quo as it is so other people will suffer under them. They only care about people who have money like themselves and they fraternize with those people. They are fools. We have a lot of foolish people in positions of power. A lot of foolish people who do not know how to utilize the power they have, not understanding they have a limited time to use that power and that power will be taken from them and they will never have it again. The wise person, I just had a discussion with my boy T&J Ayala. Shout out to you, T&J Ayala. The wise person constantly tries to empower other people around themselves. They seek, and their purpose is for the benefit of others, understanding that they're in this world to benefit others. And in so doing, they benefit themselves. These people are not fools, they are wise. However, the Bible does warn us not, as we move wisely, to throw our pearls before swine. The swine are like pigs. They like dirt. They don't believe there's a goodness anywhere. They don't believe there's God, meaning there's no goodness. They look at everything narcissistically, and they try to get the best that they can get while they're there and try and keep their legacy going through their children in this same terrible manner. But these people who scorn life and scorn other people enjoying their lives, especially people which they consider beneath them, and racism and classism and every other negative ism, from masochism to sociopathisms and, psychopathisms and, all the isms. These isms are dysfunctional because the people believe that the other people around them are offensive to them, because somewhere deep inside their minds, they feel they're better than those people, whether it's that they think they're inherently good and better than those people and they're victims, or otherwise. So what you find is that these things are foolish. They do not lead to a betterment of humanity, doesn't lead to increasing the betterment of humanity, do good. Man is the greatest destroyer. He is the most destructive creation on our planet. There's nothing that even compares to what mankind has done to this planet, not to mention what he's done to other creations on this planet, just for his own pleasure. Mankind still thinks they are the center of this planet, even though they don't know but 3% of this planet. They think they are the center of everything because they have been given dominion over the planet. Unfortunately for them, they do not realize dominion comes with responsibility to care for the planet. And so we had the United States of America moving out of the Accords, denying climate change exists. No matter how you look at it, climate change exists. Now, I don't agree with people carbon taxing other people, and that's scary. But other than that, yes, of course we have climate problems. And that's why guys like Elon Musk, who's under fire now, people are really attacking him left, right, and center. A guy who's a visionary. All of a sudden, everyone has turned against him because he took a risky maneuver and trying to go electric all the way with his plant. And it cost a lot of money to do that electric plant. It's not working out quite as he planned. And so everybody's coming down on the guy now. But I'll tell you this. Whether they succeed at destroying him or not, I will say this about Elon Musk. He showed it's possible. And, I know these corporations don't want Elon Musk to succeed because he's a threat to the petrochemical industry. And people are so, again, selfish, greedy. They will try to destroy a person. They will try and befriend you and then destroy you. But I will say this, no matter what, I'm going to say that Elon Musk gave to this world with Tesla, with all his technology and other things he was doing. I know that the government right now currently does not support Elon Musk and what he's doing. So he's having a harder time. I understand what's going on. But at the end of the day, this guy made me want to go electric. And it's a beautiful thing. And I hope he continues on and tries his best with all the ideas he had and the push he's trying to drive with. Because I know there are people who are trying to rip it out from under him and destroy him at this point in time. And the guy is a visionary. He's a visionary who strives, is the pureness of what he initially tried to get to do, that he spent his time tirelessly pushing for. I hope he keeps on pressing on, Elon. I don't think you should give up, brother. I hope you hear this video. No matter what happens, no matter the outcome, I appreciate you, brother, because you want to make a better tomorrow. I want to talk a little bit, and he has so many really wonderful projects. The funding is drying up, but he has some wonderful projects, and I hope that he gets true with those things, okay? Now, I wanted to say all of this to tell you guys this, that There is a difference between a fool and a foolish person. Foolish people don't generally have hope. They operate under oppression and fear. Foolish people will try to sabotage what visionaries and good people are really striving to do. And sometimes good people fall under the sword of these wicked people, and they get to continue their wickedness. We've seen that over and over now in this particular political climate. And I've seen some people get spared what is to come by passing away and stuff. And I think God was just merciful to those people that they're not even around to see this ridiculousness that's happening right now in society as a whole and just worldwide. But having said that, I want to say that now I'm going to deal with and nip this in the bud by looking at it in movies. And I want to show you how foolish people can be very destructive. Very, very destructive. So in front of you right now, you're looking at Batman. I'm sorry. You're looking at Man of Steel. And some person went and said that Man of Steel had color filters. Now, first of all, there's no such thing as a color filter. Okay. There's color grading. All right. There's cinematography, and there are different, tools that they use in cinematography. But anyway, this fool said, it's color filter. We're going to restore the color to Man of Steel and show you guys what it would have looked like. And so they did their version of restoring color to Man of Steel, which is down here. And they said there's a color filter on this, and look how dark and dreary it looks. Now, I want to point out to you guys a couple of things before I go any further. People who decide that somehow they're better than the directors that directed the movies. I always tell these people who are too smart for their own good, why don't you try to understand where the director was coming from first before you try to correct the director? And so we had all these critics and all this media out there, and we had all of these bloggers on YouTube, etc., talking about how Man of Steel could have been improved and blah, 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 according to the Joker. What did the Joker say? He said, in Suicide Squad, what did he say? He said, blah, 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 blah. Something about your mouth is going to get you in trouble or something like that, right? And these people repeatedly, like foolish people, trying to tear down something, like foolish people that they are, they never got the point that Zack Snyder was doing. So let's go into what the understanding behind it is, and then we'll go back to this original footage, and we'll see if it actually meshes up, right? So look at it here. Look at that beautiful plume. Look at the pretty colors. Look at the pretty colors. I'll tell you why also these people were saying that. They somehow always try to compare what happens in the DCEU with the MCU. I've seen them nonstop do that. Even though the DCU had its own thing going on, its own flavor, its own way of telling stories, its own way of sequencing the stories. They constantly try to compare to the MCU, and then not only do they not appreciate the uniqueness of the DCEU and what its approach is, but then they turn around and say it needs to be like the MCU, and it needs to have these solo movies first, and it needs to do this, and it needs to do that, and this is too fast, and they're trying to race up with the MCU. They continuously tried to say that it needed to be like the MCU. Now, Man of Steel looked at the disaster that happened. The Avengers movie, if you ever go back and watch it, it's somewhat colorful. It's not very, very colorful, but somewhat colorful. And the disaster that you saw when the invasion happened was in no way near the kind of catastrophic disaster we saw in Man of Steel. Yes? You there? Hold on one second, folks. Let me just first of all mute. Just now, 1 second. Yes, I'm hearing you. Hold on. Sorry about that, folks. My neighbor came through, so I had to talk with her. Before I go on, though, let me just see what you guys are saying in the comment section, if anything at all. Damian Anton Vincent, man, shout out to you, brother. I hope you're at work or wherever you are. I hope you're doing all right, okay? All right, so let me go back to what I was saying here. Before I can do that, let me just make sure I get back into screen share. Okay, we're back. Right, so back to what I was saying. So you see here that this is the original footage, and this here is what people call the restored colored version. It's not the restored colored version, but anyway, that's what it looks like. Now, there's a dramatic difference between the original footage and restored colored version. Oh, actually, this came up on Twitter. Sam, the whatever his name is, Sam the something, he came through, and he showed this where people had color corrected Man of Steel. Okay. Now, if you look up here, first of all, the details where you see all the dust on Perry White and the other guy, and just the carnage in the background, the detail that's there is lost when you do that color correction, right? But they wanted it brighter. Now, as I said before, when you look at Avengers, it looks bright and colorful and all of that stuff. So they wanted it like that because, again, people were thinking this is a comic book movie. It's going to be bright. It's going to be colorful. Characters not going to be taken too seriously. They went in there looking for something like that. They got a much more deeper, realistic movie. Now, a lot of times I listen to people talk and I can see how much they're ignorant of what kind of movie they got. And you can tell when people have no clue what they were watching and they sort of misunderstood what they were seeing. And that's really amazing to me. And what's amazing is purposefully or unintentionally or otherwise, bloggers and the media go along with that and they perpetrate those narratives. Let's see what the director is actually going for. Before I do so, I just want to remind you guys once again that you have your snail mail to pass into Warner Brothers. So I expect you guys in France. Tomorrow's the 17th, guys, in France. So make sure you get your mail in there. Australia, 2 days after. So Friday, we're looking at Sunday. You guys have to send off your mail. Probably better if you send it off in the weekend because I don't know if post offices are open on a Sunday. So try to get your things in by Friday as well. People in Australia, Sri Lanka, you guys want to get it in by Saturday, or you want to get it in by Saturday or tomorrow. Okay, so guys in Australia, Sri Lanka, France, you guys need to get your stuff ready for tomorrow. And then on Monday, UK, Greece, Mexico, you guys got to get your stuff in. I think I'll get my stuff in that day as well. And the people in the Caribbean, Colombia, Uruguay, you guys got to get your stuff in the following day, which will be Tuesday. And then Wednesday, almost everybody else got to get their stuff in by Wednesday. Only the people in California, they have to get in their stuff by Friday. All right, the following week, okay? All right, so I just wanted to give you guys that quick update before I go back to what I was saying. So when you look here at Man of Steel, there's a lot of comparisons between Man of Steel and what the director was actually going for, which has to do with the Ground Zero event called 9/11. This is interesting. All right, then. So if you look at 9/11, the staircase is quite reminiscent of what you saw at the end of Man of Steel. There's a staircase there as well, and rubble. All right, and here is a lot of rubble and stuff going on here. This was at this is downtown Manhattan. The carnage following the fall of the World Trade Center in Lower Manhattan, New York, 2001. Right, remember 9/11 happened in 2001. Let's have a look at some more stuff. When we look at the Ground Zero event here, remember this destruction right there in the middle of Metropolis? Well, that is very much reminiscent of the destruction when one of the towers fell down in Manhattan. So we had Metropolis, and this is Manhattan, downtown Manhattan, at 9/11. Okay, 9/11, very similar and reminiscent. This was Ground Zero. This was Black Zero. Right? This one was caused by a Kryptonian ship, And this one was caused by terrorists slamming into a building. We would later, we would later say, some people spoke about it. They called themselves the truth tellers. They said 9/11 was an inside job. And you know, I've been following that for a while. They call themselves the truth seekers, etc. And we found out that there was actually a controlled demolition, that building could not go down because a plane hit it. There's actually explosives that discharged and blew up successively as floors successively were blown off as the building fell down, just like how you would do it with a controlled demolition. But the interesting thing here is the impact, right? You see all that cloud of dust right there spraying all over the place. And we saw the cloud of dust here and here as well. And so we can see that Zack Snyder was actually calling back to 9/11. Everything he was doing was a shout out or call back to 9/11. That's very important for people to understand. Let's make sure I got this right. Is that nice and sharp? Because I'm not seeing you getting nice and sharp, though. I'm not seeing that. It's supposed to be nice and sharp. What's up? I guess that's as good as it gets. All right, so there you go. And I thought this is interesting. And the more you look at the different scenes in Man of Steel and Batman v Superman, where we saw the Black Zero event, is the more you see the comparisons between that and Ground Zero. Okay, and so there's a reason Zack Snyder had the color as he did. So literally in 9/11, this is a picture of people looking at what was happening with the Trade Center buildings, and you can see the horror on different people's faces. Very much Zack Snyder mirrored that horror in his Man of Steel story. All right, literally, it looks very similar, right? You look at people trying to help people after the disaster had happened, the clouds of smoke and plumage and stuff. And again, you see very much a similar parallel here. First, you look here. Now, this has a different color here, okay? It's a different color grading for Man of Steel here, where people were trying to help. He was trying to help save the lady there. And so this color grading is a little bit different. This is the actual 9/11 first responders and people coming to help other people, okay? So the normal people, and there were also first responders there. And it's interesting, when you look at Batman v Superman, it's very much similar. Again, cloudy, patch, debris and stuff. This is Bruce Wayne going in as a first responder to when Wayne Enterprises fell down. And the silhouette is very much like this silhouette here. See how this guy has his hands at his side a certain kind of way? Literally, Bruce Wayne has that look. I don't know if you guys can see that. I'm trying to zoom in a little bit more because he's still in the shadows. You look, his two hands are at the side, and he's walking through there very much like this gentleman is doing. He's much more clear. But again, the dust piled up on him and the debris. So Zack is trying to give you that reminiscent feel of 9/11. When you're watching this, you feel like it's 9/11. Here you see in Man of Steel, people are running away from a collapsing building here. And there's a lot of debris there. And this is the Wayne Towers collapsing here. You see Bruce Wayne running away there, running towards it while everybody's running away. And look, this is what happened in 9/11. You see the plumage, the debris. You see people running away. There are more people running away. This actually happened. And Zack is re-simulating that. All right, he's re-simulating that. And so you have to understand that's what the cinematography is trying to bring forth. The debris, the dust, the plumage. All right. Now, in 9/11, the Black Zero event, we see here the tremendous rubble. Look at this destruction. It looks cryptic. It looks scary. It looks creepy. And there's a black plumage of smoke in the background. And Zack Snyder kind of tried to do the cinematography to capture that moment, to capture that sort of terrifying event that happened. So here you see them, and you see the plumage of smoke. You see the destructive buildings. You see all the carnage here. But even this looks much more creepier than that. Okay. So that's why Zack Snyder used the kind of color grading he used to show you that it's destruction. You mess with that color grading, you're not going to get that feel of absolute destruction and debris and dust everywhere. If it's too colorful, you're not going to get that feeling. All right. If you look here, everything's almost monocolored. You see, it's not colorful. And the reason that is so is because they're trying, this is a disaster. You have all these black plumes of smoke in the background. Okay, it's a disaster. It's a horrific disaster on a massive scale. So this is what Zack was trying to capture. And Zack still has a much more sanitized version to the actual event if you're really paying attention, right? A lot of things are going to pop out. Here is in Man of Steel, you see a building coming down because again, the Black Zero event, you have the Kryptonian ship, and it's using the gravity machine to destroy all around, but buildings are falling. Okay, this building is coming down. This was another Trade Center building that was falling down into its footprint. And you can see very much the similarity in the smoke and the smog around the other buildings around it. This is almost shot for shot very similar. Okay, and you can see Zack Snyder is inspired by 9/11 to do these events to get this catastrophic feel. Now, I must say, Avengers did not do that. They went the fantasy comic book route, and so the destruction never felt organic. It never felt real. And one of the reasons why the destruction felt so real and why people took it as very severe is because in Man of Steel, people complained about that much more than, say, with the Avengers movie that came out in 2000, I think it was 2012. It came out the year before. It was mainly because in Man of Steel, it felt so real. You have to understand, this is all CG here. There is a city here, but the building falling is CG. All right, the smoke and smog might even be CG. Okay, so my point being, some of it's real, some of it's CG. The point I'm making, though, is that it felt real and it made people relive 2001, the 9/11 experience. And Zack Snyder wanted that to be so for a particular reason. And so if you went and tweaked the color grading, you would lose that impact, that visceral impact that you were watching at the movie. I heard people say that the movie was colorless, it was dull, it was void, it was dreary, it was sad, all in a reaction to what they saw in Avengers the year before. They saw a light, fluffy, don't take the characters seriously at all kind of movie. And there was no backlash, no consequences to what happened. Whereas when Zack Snyder put out Man of Steel, you felt every moment. You relived moments of terror. You felt the terror. You felt the horror of 9/11. And again, it still is not, Zack Snyder even toned it down because it was still not to the level of the horror of true 9/11. You can see shrapnel coming off from that building right there, flying towards, and mind you, look at the cross right here, which tells me this is a church right here. This is a frightening, horrific event. You can even see the shadow and imprint on the other building that is burning right here, the other tower. And this one just came down in its footprint, and look at all that dust and smoke rising up out of there. But the terror that you saw here for this building is supposed to make you feel that terror that you felt with 9/11. It was supposed to be a terrorist attack. It was the ultimate terrorist attack, right? And that's the point behind it. So Zack Snyder was trying to recreate 9/11 in this fictitious world called Metropolis. It's not downtown Manhattan, but they both begin with M. And in a way, he's using as a metaphor the puppeteer or the puppet master who is engineering that, who's considered an alien. Just like how the terrorists who engineered 9/11 were considered aliens. And this is where we started to have this terror and anti-Islam, anti-Muslim sentiment because of what happened in 9/11 with what was called, at the time, they were called Al-Qaeda. You remember that? Al-Qaeda. Al-Qaeda took credit, and Osama bin Laden was the guy who supposedly engineered this, right? Well, think of Osama bin Laden as General Zod. Think of him directly engineering the destruction of these buildings and the destruction of downtown Metropolis. Kryptonians, aliens. All right, now we can look at Superman. He's like the Muslim guy. He's like this alien in an anti-Islamic, anti-Muslim, anti-alien, world post 9/11. Well, what happens with Superman? So they wanted you, Zack Snyder wanted you at the end of Justice League to feel a certain way about Superman, that some of you guys would actually do exactly what he wanted you to do. He basically connected his fictitious world to the real world by getting you guys to respond and say, that's not my Superman, and to actually get a sort of anti-Superman sentiment towards that Superman because he's affiliated with Kryptonians, and you can't tell the difference between the Superman you saw in the movie and that he was different to the Kryptonians. You felt that the Superman in the movie you saw was doing exactly what the Kryptonians were doing. He was killing out his own people. And you guys started to heap all of that negativity on Superman. You started blaming Superman for the destruction in Metropolis, which was caused by General Zod. Just like how you guys started blaming Muslims for the act of terror that happened in 9/11, when it was really Al-Qaeda headed by Osama bin Laden who was responsible for that, not Muslims. There's a lot of Muslims that were killed in that Trade Center building, and there's a lot of Muslims in the United States of America. Muhammad Ali was a famous Muslim, okay? So you can't blame Muslims and can't start saying, oh, radical Muslims. Well, what are you really saying? Timothy McVeigh was a Christian. What are you going to say, radical Christians? The last couple of terrorist acts that happened in the United States of America were done by white men. What are you going to say? They terrorists? You guys are afraid to say they are terrorists, okay? The most recent terrorist act was by a guy from the neo-Nazi guy that ran his car into some people in North Carolina. So I'm just saying, if you're going to go there, then you got to call everybody terrorists. But for some reason, and that's what Zack Snyder's tying together in the comic book. He's saying people unreasonably are going to blame Superman for what General Zod did. It's General Zod's fault, not Superman's fault. It ain't Superman's fault at all. General Zod threw Superman into buildings. Yes, Superman slammed Zod into a building or two, but not through a whole set of buildings. It's General Zod doing that. And people are saying, well, he should have taken General Zod to the sky. Well, General Zod took him to the sky. How about that one? And they still came back down to Earth. So at the end of the day, and to Metropolis at that. So at the end of the day, it didn't really matter, because at the end of the day, you were going to be very much offended because this world was so real to you. It reminded you of your world, and it reminded you of the unpleasant experiences in your world. And that was what Zack Snyder was going for. He wanted you to feel the unpleasantness of 9/11, but then to see that there was still somebody there that was trying to fight for your behalf. All right, let's keep it moving. So that's why it feels so real. Go to Batman v Superman. He started off with the Metropolis incident once again. And again, it reminds us of 9/11. You look at when Bruce Wayne passes the business guy that's covered. He's covered. You can see the air is filled with the dirt and dust. And the guy's covered in dust. It reminds us of this guy right here in 9/11. Right? In 9/11, this is real. This is from 9/11. These business people walking out and they're holding hands, and there's another business person behind them. It reminds us of these business people here, and this guy holding this woman's hand while he's holding his head, and this other businessman walking by. They're all from Wayne Enterprises, but they're still business people, right? Employees. And all I'm saying to you is that callback again. And look, the dust in the air. You're not going to have pretty colors when it's dusty like that, right? When buildings are falling and there's a lot of explosions and stuff, there's going to be a lot of dust and fire. Okay, something that the Avengers movie didn't have because it was a fantasy. You had dust, you had destruction, but you could see their set pieces. They're sets. They're not. They doesn't feel like it's real. It's not real to you because it's fantasy and it's not real to you. You're not feeling nothing. So you're not worried about the Avengers and all the Shatari flying in the skies. They just look like, you know, stuff to crunch on. And, you know, it's a world-ending event, but you know, you don't feel nothing. You're not feeling the stress and the tension of the world-ending event because they're cracking jokes while they're flying in the skies like an adventure movie, fantasy adventure. So even though it's in New York City and it's a world and they address in New York, you don't feel no affiliation to 9/11. You don't feel no affiliation to some real disaster that actually happened. Zack Snyder made you feel something. And it might have been unpleasant, but he made you feel what it was to relive that 9/11 experience. A lot of you didn't dig that, didn't you? A lot of you didn't dig it, but I loved it. I loved it because it was real. I loved it because for the first time in comic book movies, they actually went somewhere with something. So let me take you back again, just a second or two. I just want to go back a bit. Let's go back to the beginning right here. So now imagine, just imagine for a second that we went with this color coding. It would have sucked the life out of the movie, wouldn't it? It would have taken away all the stakes. Now you could call it a pretentious movie like all the critics were calling it. Now you could call it a pretentious movie because you're not feeling that grit. You're not feeling that terrifying event anymore because it's like kaleidoscopic colors. We just living in a fantasy, huh? But here it looks like Perry White's gone through some shit, right? And you could see the dust all over his body, right? Because they accentuated on the disaster. The set might have been in real life much more colorful than this, but when Zach was finished with it, with the grading and everything, you felt the disaster because it has to feel like a disaster. And remember, a lot behind here is green screen. This is all CG. Right? Even this is much more disaster looking than this. All right. Let's move on. Now, the other interesting thing that Zack Snyder did, and he actually called back to these moments, was one of the things he did was he called out to a street that actually remained standing at the end of that Ground Zero event. Let's see if I can show you guys this. So, oh shit, I messed up something. Yeah, that's okay. So this street here remains standing amidst the ruins of this 9/11 event. Look at the sky. It's all black and everything. There's a building, a silhouette of a building in the background. This street's name is Courtlandt. Courtlandt. And you know, Courtlandt was the name of this sinking vessel. This sinking vessel in Justice League, which was part of what Zack Snyder shot. Now, what I'm trying to tell you, there's a running theme there that Zack Snyder's talking about, that the court, the area of decision, the Jehoshaphat, the valley of decision, the place where people cast judgment, was under siege. It was under terror, a terror attack. And so it was interesting that this street, Courtlandt, remained standing in the middle of downtown Manhattan, you know what I'm saying, while these buildings were just like crushed. You know what I'm saying? And you can see this is much more ghastly than anything Zack Snyder showed you on the screen. This rated PG-13 movie. And I thought, again, that was at some deeper significance right there. So in the end, what I'm trying to tell you guys is Man of Steel's Black Zero event was inspired by the 9/11 Ground Zero event. And as you can see, 9/11 was darker, as much more clouds from smoke and more debris. If anything, Zack dialed back on the graphic nature of the Black Zero event compared to Ground Zero. And I left out some letters there, which is kind of pathetic, but it is what happens. Sometimes you type, you think you press a letter, and the letter just don't come down. And that's what it is. So I wanted to show you how ghastly the Ground Zero event looked like. Look at this shit. This is terrible. You still got skyline and buildings here. You know, some of it's blown away, but this is supposed to actually be filled with debris, not sand, from the buildings. You know, and Zack sort of, you know, dialed it back a little bit. You know what I'm saying? He dialed it back a little bit. But look at this. This is what happened in 9/11. All right. So when people tell you, you know, no, man, it was just too dark, and Man of Steel was too dark, and Superman's movie, and, you know, they should have had more pretty colors, and they try to cite this, it shows their lack of understanding of what Zack Snyder was going for and why that was important and why that was significant in a comic book movie. Now, as my good friend Sam said, and as also Stephen M. Colbert, who joined into the discussion, is actually Stephen M. Colbert, who actually put up this picture. He said it was these big mouth fools, these foolish people who had no idea what they were talking about, that influenced Warner Brothers into giving us Justice League and giving us, especially the third act, had no stress, no weight in it. And even sometimes the scene with the downtown Manhattan, downtown Metropolis scene with Superman facing the League, it lost some of that physicality and that color and that certain sort of tone that was seen earlier on in the movie. And the reason that happened is because these clueless, foolish people, that's how dangerous they can be, clueless, foolish people trying to give advice, and Warner Brothers listened to those people. And the movies that they were making, which were very good movies, which people would appreciate for years to come, they compromised that. And that's how Justice League ended up being what it was. Let me give you guys another one. I may have showed you guys this. And again, the stupidity of people can be dangerous. So here we have the original footage with Superman flying through Africa. All right. And then this is what they consider the restored footage, where everything's freaking green, including the giraffes, right? Everything's green. Superman's flying through this green, lush, green savanna. Now, if you know anything about Africa, the savannas are not green. That's the first thing. The first thing you know, there's no such thing as a green savanna. But they so want to saturate the color, they made it green. So that was the first laughing point that all of us were laughing at. Sam was putting it there. They so want to add color to the thing. You know what's the amazing thing? You know that the MCU doesn't have that kind of color. MCU doesn't even have that kind of color, but it is what it is. So I pointed out to a lot of people, and you probably saw that in one of my videos before, that this is actually taken from Etosha National Park, Namibia, Africa. So Superman's actually flying through Etosha National Park in Namibia, Africa. And if you look at Etosha National Park, the grass ain't green. You got a couple of trees that are green like here. The mountainside's kind of bare as well because it's a savanna, okay? It's a tropical savanna, okay? Okay, you look at this sand and water, okay? And you got a little bit of green grass here and some trees, but mostly, as you can see, it is brown. The ground is brown and bare, even in the mountainside. So it's, again, just a lack of understanding by these people. You listen to them critique, and they have no idea how much research and work went into these projects. And so that's what you got. That's what you get. But here's an extra piece that was really beautiful that was shared to me by Diana. I forgot what her is. I think it's Diana Lee, okay, on Twitter. She shows Superman going in between a herd of zebra going this way, okay, and that way. And it's really cool to see this because this actually calls back to Superman Birthright when Superman was flying through the herd of zebra in the African plains. So, and once again, the plains are, again, this color, right? And so it's just amazing that Zack Snyder was able to not only combine from an actual place, which is Etosha Park, but he was also able to pull from Superman Birthright and show Superman flying through there as well. So he knocked out two birds with one stone. But the gem that we're talking about, that was totally missed by those people. Because why? Because, again, they do things without understanding. They so want to see color that they don't even understand the significance of how much and how real this thing is and how much it appeals and applies to the comics. And so that's the kind of people we dealt with. And when you have foolish people, you can't cast your pearls before them. What would they do? They take the pearl, like they did here, and they trample it underfoot. Oh, see, Superman was devoid of color. Now, mind you, MCU doesn't have that much color. In fact, it's some kind of bland because they don't do a lot of good color grading. But it's just amazing that these people, you know, their critiques of Man of Steel are so off because they have no understanding. They have a bias. Because they saw the Avengers movie, they thought it must be like the Avengers. And so in so doing, they cheapened and shortchanged the movie. So when Warner Brothers decided to get out Justice League and say, you know what, we're gonna do what you say. We're gonna make it the MCU. Right, we're gonna cheapen it up. We're gonna cheapen up the movie. We don't need all of that complicated stuff by Zack, man. We don't need to overthink it. And when they did that, guess what? Justice League flopped. And my point being, if they try to do that with the rest of the DCEU, the fans going to see it. They're going to see the lack of quality. Warner Brothers, you guys got to use your head. Let James Wan do what James Wan do. Let him do what he want to do. We're not trying to get fantasy worlds, okay? We want grounded worlds. Wonder Woman pulled it off. A very grounded world, not Black Panther kind of world, which is fantasy still. No, we want a real thing. We want a real world. We want something that feels real when you look at it. And that's what Zack Snyder started us off with. David Ayer didn't want to do CGI because he wanted a real world as well. This universe is grounded in, it is a grounded universe, not like the MCU, which is fantasy. And there ain't no consequences to nothing. Even now, when you look at Infinity War, it's the dumbest thing in the world. People just disappear at the drop of a hand, and that's supposed to be great. You know, it's stupid. It's stupid. There's no reason why these people deserve to die. There was nothing. There's no consequence to anything. It's just random. You know, the MCU still hasn't gotten their stride when it comes to grounded movies. They don't have anything. The most grounded movies they have is Winter Soldier, Captain America: The First Avenger, and the first Iron Man. That's their most grounded films. When they attempted to try and do a grounded film with The Incredible Hulk, they still fell short because it still felt kind of clunky and it didn't feel real. They were trying to go there. You know, people died and stuff, but it still felt CG heavy and not real. But it's still one of the better movies that they did compared to these later movies, which are just a laugh fest. They just jokes, 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 jokes. You can't take none of the characters seriously anymore. The only character I could take seriously was Black Panther. When we went to Spider-Man Homecoming, Captain America was making jokes as well. So everybody's a jokester. It's not a universe that you can take seriously, but the DCEU, you can take it seriously. Even if there's comedy in there and characters in there, you can take the characters seriously, because until Joss Whedon, these characters were being treated with respect. And hopefully they continue to be treated with respect, because it's a travesty if you don't treat them with respect, you know, because they represent something. So you want to treat the characters well because they represent something. I heard a lot of people, even MCU fans, saying, you know, the DCU has much well out flushed out characters. And I'm like, how can they have well flushed out characters? But you telling me they need to have their own single movies all the time? You know, and then there's this stuff going on in the media right now. They're talking about, you know, the DCU has been disbanded and now we will just have standalone movies. No, it's not been disbanded. It's still going to be there. Okay. They're just focusing on the individual stories of the individual characters before we get another Justice League movie. That's all they're doing. They did it with Wonder Woman. They started off the universe with Man of Steel. They coupled up. They did their little couple up movie with Batman v Superman. Now we had Justice League. And then they're going back to the single movies, and then they'll come and couple back up again and do another Justice League movie somewhere down the line. It's just kind of common sense, right? This is what they're going to do. So at the end of the day, and they had that plan since God knows when, since about 2000, I think it was 2005, they had a plan for the DCEU, and they're still more or less moving to plan, okay? They're still more or less moving to their plan. They're just trying to tweak it and make it more Marvelized, and I'm telling Wonder Bros, don't do that. Just do what you do. Do your DCEU stuff. Don't fantasize the characters. Don't trivialize the characters. Do your DCEU stuff. You are the DCEU. You're not nothing else. Don't try to be Marvel. Don't try to be nobody else. Be yourself. All right. If the movies are serious, so be it. Ride with the director. If there's humor, ride with the director. You know, I'm riding with David Sandberg still. I'm still there, my dude. Shazam is next year, so I'm not even studying Shazam right now. We're trying to focus on Aquaman. Make sure James Wan gets James Wan's movie. I want James Wan's movie. I don't want no Warner Brothers interfere James Wan movie. Let James Wan do his thing. Okay, that's all I'm saying. And if that's what James Wan give us, then fine. But look, don't do to him what you did to David Ayer and Zack Snyder. Don't do it to him. Okay, I don't want to hear about no poll. I don't want to hear about if it's serious, let it be serious. If it's creepy, let it be creepy. You know what I'm saying? Let James Wan do James Wan. I'm saying it over and over again. People are going to be very sensitive to that. I don't want to hear no strange, weird jokes. And I'm saying like James Wan. I'm like questioning myself if this is James Wan or not. I don't want to have to do that. All right. We had enough. Justice League was good enough. That was okay. Don't do it again. Okay. And my other thing is with the Snyder Cut. Did you hear somebody's voice out loud? Hold on a second, folks. I just want to, somebody saying hello. Hold on a second. I'm getting interrupted a lot, man. All right, folks. Sorry about that again. I was interrupted once again. I just wanted to check and see what was going on. Yeah, all right. Shout out to you, brother. Damien Anton Vincent, man. Yeah. So I just wanted to share this with you guys. I know you guys can't see the screen right now. I'm coming out of the screen and I'm going my way, but I wanted you guys to see. Where are we at? Yeah, I wanted you guys to see what I was talking about, right? So that's why I said, you know, it's not good to have your hands, you know, it's not good to, you know, have foolish people speaking on your behalf. And, you know, a lot of them speak very loudly. That's the problem with foolish people. You look at what's happening with Trump and all these other people, and they got these big mouths. They say empty vessels have to make the most noise. And a lot of times we have to like rebuff these guys. We have to come back at them immediately, because otherwise their mantras will go on and on and on. You know what I mean? So if you look at any right now MCU movie, you look at any MCU movie, you look at Guardians of the Galaxy 2 or 1, and they had a lot of explosions and stuff. But again, the typical Hollywood thing, no consequences to the explosion and the destruction that happens. When you look at Infinity War, these colorful, fights with these colorful explosions and battles, and the big baddie seems to be subdued, but it's still no consequence to, taking down the big, no collateral damage. You know what I mean? And then the ridiculousness of Infinity War, in my opinion, no disrespect to Infinity War. I know some of you guys like that movie, but the ridiculousness of it, and what I said is fantasy, is that, so he gets this thing, he knocks out, half of the population for no reason at all. When you think about it, there's no reason. He gives a reason, but it's not really much of a reason, because these people they didn't earn none of that. And so they just wiped out. And he's like, okay, so the moral of the story is what? When we look at this movie, nothing, right? So that's a nihilistic movie, right? And they're going to say what's part 2. So it ends, not only does it end on a cliffhanger, the same thing that they were criticizing the DCU movies for, the DCU movies mustn't end on a cliffhanger. Not only does it end on a cliffhanger, it has no moral to the story. When you watch the entire of Infinity War, there's no moral to the story. You're empathizing with the villain, which is dumb, because the villain's he ain't got no love, nothing in his heart. Everybody says Infinity War is great for the villain, which is like dumb, because that's not what a movie's about. A movie, yes, you want to empathize with a villain in the story if the villain is layered or whatever, but that's not what makes the movie, And so at the end of the day, you ask yourself, well, what was the point of the movie? What was the lesson taught? I hear a lot of people talk about sacrifice, which is not the lesson that's taught in that movie. When you really think about it, unpack Infinity War, there's nothing you get from that movie. Nothing. Zip. Nothing. And my point being, this is the MCU's desperate attempt to try and do what Zack Snyder was doing with his movie. They said that Batman v Superman was nihilistic and, it had no point to it. No, it's that your small mind couldn't understand what it was about. There was the superhero sacrificed his life in spite of not being liked by people, all people on Earth, for a greater cause. And that inspired Batman to want to start the Justice League. There's literally a storyline and a moral to the story. All right? That sacrificing your life and really trying to display good in spite of the consequences does have a ripple effect, does have an effect on other people. That's not what Infinity War is about. You see what I'm saying? And this is the sort of thing that I'm talking about. It shows us, because they cannot replicate it. They tried to replicate it, but they can't. Because they can't replicate the depth of what Zack Snyder was doing, they were bad talking him. Zack introduced something, and then the Russo brothers tried to replicate what Zack Snyder did in Batman v Superman with failed success. They made a ton of money because they have these, small-minded fans that went out there to watch Infinity War. People are swayed by public opinion. I even heard my little brother talk about Infinity War was garbage. Then he goes and watches it, and he's like, man, it was actually a better movie when I saw it in better definition. And I was like, no, Ninja, you just go with popular thought. That's just the way how you roll. You ain't got no thought of your own. And it's funny, because to me, when you see people, if they get a lot of peer pressure, they cave into it. You know what I'm saying? The initial thought, I remember my brother's initial response to Batman v Superman was, man, this is a great movie. I don't know what people are talking about. Then he comes back and says, it wasn't all that. Look at the Martha joke. And he just goes with the prevailing sentiment. That's my brother, right? And that's the problem with people. I remember watching a critic watch Batman v Superman. It was like a great movie and stuff. When he sat amongst other critics who were bad-mouthing it, he realized other people didn't really like it like him. He started conforming to everybody. And then he started saying, you know what, it wasn't that great. Nah, it really sucked. And yeah, I agree with you. And I was like, man, dude, you are one spineless dude. You don't know how to form your own opinion and hold to it. And that's the way how people are. People tend to be influenced by other people. They don't have their own opinions and thoughts and stick with it. And even if other people gave reasons why they thought so, You should be able to critically think through that and see if it is correct or not. A lot of these guys, they ain't got no spine whatsoever. They just play political games. As soon as one critic brings up a point, they don't have no counterpoint to that. They just fall in line and like, you know what, you're right. Yeah, you're right. You know what, you're right. And I'll be laughing all the time because they have no filter. Like, they don't say, well, I don't see that because you see X, Y, and Z. And this is what happened with this. It's very few people I've seen do that. I remember this guy on Collider when he was defending the Transformer movie and was trying to explain why he thought Transformers made sense. He actually had points that the other guys could not counter. He stood up for Transformers, and I thought that was good, and that's what you need to do. You need to, I'm not saying you need to argue with people and curse them out and stuff, but you should be able to have your own informed opinion and be able to follow what's going on. And if you have your opinion, you stay with your opinion. You don't just flip-flop your opinion. And sometimes you may be swayed by other people and say, oh, you know what, you can have a point there. But you have to have your own opinion, okay? And be able to counter somebody else's opinion about something. Don't just fall in line with everybody else because you think they're right because they have the numbers. So that's what happens in this world. Anyways, I wanted to share that with you guys. I hope you guys enjoyed these videos. I'm going to go out and do a little bit of work and then go back in and come back here and keep on dealing with the poll. So let me tell you guys a little bit about the poll that's going on. Poll's still going on. I got one more day after this. I think it's Friday or Saturday. I think the poll ends. So you guys can always check that out. Check out my videos on this channel. I'll put the link to the poll, put the link to the letter from Fiona Zhang, and I'll also put the link to the petitions, as well as there's another poll running by Sam. I forget what his other name is on Twitter. I'm going to put up that other poll as well. So you guys can vote on both polls as well as the petition. If you need to sign the petition, you can spread this stuff around as well. I saw some of you guys on social media spreading my stuff on Twitter. That's really cool. We may end up with about 2,000 something views, 2,000 something votes, which will be okay. It's reasonable. It's 1% of what really should be. But if we end up with that at the end of this poll, I'm going to try and renew the poll so more people are aware of the poll, so more people can participate in the poll, and we'll see what happens in real time. But at least Warner Bros. Gets an idea. And we're somewhere around 90 something %. So I think it's what last time I looked was 93 to 7%. So 93% wanted the Snyder cut, 7% wanted the theatrical cut, and it was like, cool, the theatrical cut, and that's that. That's a big chunk of 2,000 some people. So that's pretty good for the poll. That should give Warner Bros. Some kind of feedback. We're going to try and run a couple other polls, just keep them running one after the other so we can get more numbers. I'd like to get at least to 10,000, maybe, 20,000. I know if we just hit a particular Twitter with a lot of followers and it gets a lot of people's attention, especially if the guy tweets it and pins it at the top of his post, then a lot more people can come through because, you have lots more people. If I can get to 10, 12,000 people, that'd be good. That'd be a good number, or even 20,000. That'd be good. Those are good numbers for Twitter. Because it's basically, I think, 205,000 people that were interested in the Justice League movie. So anywhere around, 20,000 is like 10% of the population. You just multiply by 10. With 1%, you still have to multiply by 100. That's kind of still a far cry sample size, but you get to a nice good size, like about 20,000 votes. 25,000 votes. That's a good size for Warner Bros. To pay attention to the interest and to see because the majority of people want the Snyder cut, no matter what they're saying, their differences. The majority of DC fans, I believe, want the Snyder cut. I can't prove it yet because it's still 2,000 is still too small a number, but hopefully as we progress onwards, and poll, we'll get better and better figures. All right, guys. So that's it for me here on this stream. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Let me see what you guys are saying in the comment section, and I'm out of here. And nobody's saying anything in the comment section. That's cool. I can take that as a hint. So I'm out of here, man, guys. I hope you guys enjoyed the rest of your day. Keep shining and be safe. I hope you get back from work and be safe there. You guys have a great one. Peace.